Okay, folks, next section is titled section 10.7. This is the last section of this chapter about circles. So we're going to wrap things up here in this video. It says the title of it is Write and Graph Equations of Circles. So, first of all, I want you to recall, I've got this definition down here. I'm going to try to have some guided notes for you as well, so try to fill in the blanks. But the first thing to recall, this was all the way back from the first section of this chapter when we were just getting the terminology down. We had to understand what a circle was. So the definition of a circle is that it's the set of points in a plane that are equidistant from a given point, and that given point is known as the center. So with that being said, kind of the key word here, guys, is equidistant, and the key part of that key word is distant, or distance. Okay, well, yeah, distant is a word, but yeah, distance is what we're going to be dealing with. So guys, if we're talking about a set of points that are equidistant from a given point, we are going to use the distance formula. All right, so that's what we're going to work with to determine what the standard equation is of a circle. So that's what we're going to get into next. Now, what I could do, this is something I could do, is just give you the standard equation of the circle and just have you accept it and move on. You guys know me, that ain't me. I'm going to show you where it comes from. Alright, so draw this on your guided notes. We're going to figure out the standard equation of a circle. So we don't have it yet, so go ahead and draw this circle. This is just a random circle anywhere in a coordinate plane. I put it in the first quadrant so we didn't have to worry about any negative values or anything like that. So these are all positive values that we have to work with. But just know that if we do have negative values that we can use, the standard equation applies to negative values as well. Alright, so this is the idea. So what I want to talk about, guys, again, to talk about the definition here, all of these points on the circle, I can pick any point here on the circle, all of those points have to be the same distance away, and that distance is known as the, if we drew a segment from here to there, what would that be called, guys? And that's going to be called the radius. So I'm going to call this R for right now. And yeah, that is the radius, not just for right now, that is the radius. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to label any point on the circle as x comma y. It has an x coordinate and a y coordinate, so we'll call it x comma y. So just know that I could be referring to any of these points. I just picked one in particular right here. And then h comma k, we usually let h and k represent the coordinates of our center. Okay, that's going to be the center of our circle. So h comma k, h is the x coordinate of our center, and k is going to be the y coordinate of the center. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this thing started. So like I mentioned a couple of times, I know I might be repeating myself a lot, but a circle is the set of points that are equidistant from a given point. So what if I wanted to try to find that distance, the radius here, if I want to figure out what the radius is? So just a little bit of quick review. We talked about the distance formula all the way back in chapter 1 in this class. It was one of the first things we looked at, and it's derived from Pythagorean theorem. So if you don't remember the distance formula, you should remember it, but if you don't, I'm going to write it down here. This is just the generic distance formula. I'll write it in purple. Distance is going to equal the square root. Now you can write it a lot of different ways, but I'll just write it like this. It's going to be x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. Does that ring a bell? All right, hopefully everybody said yes. So I'm going to use this formula. I'm just going to plug in values that I know. Okay, so before I do any of this, all these subscripts mean are which point where we're choosing. So let's say we wanted to call, I'm going to call this point 2, and I'm going to call this point the center, let's call it point 1. So now we can refer to the x coordinate for each of them and the y coordinate for each of those points. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Let's try to use this distance formula, and let's plug in the values that we have here. So let's plug in the variables we have for x2, x1, all this stuff we're going to start plugging in. So here's my question. My first question is this. What is the x coordinate for point 2? All right, now notice it's not a number. The x coordinate for point 2 is just x. That's all it is, okay, x. So let me go and write this in. I'm going to do this in green here. So the distance is going to, actually, I'm going to fix this already. One thing I'm going to fix. Let me erase that. Instead of distance, what distance is that? What are we trying to find? Well, we're trying to find from there to there, which is the radius. So this is going to be r squared. So that's going to be the radius. Same thing as the distance. That's the distance we're trying to find, the radius. What am I doing? Sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself, guys. Let me fix this. Not squared, just r. That's my mistake. Make that change. Like Michael Jackson, Man in the Mirror. It's going to feel real good. Shimon. Make that change. So r is going to equal square root. Our x, again, I just want to point this out again. Point 2, the x coordinate for that is x. What is the x coordinate for point 1? Hopefully you said h. That is it. So it's going to be x minus h squared. Okay, let's keep going. Let's try to fill in the formula. Now, what is the y coordinate for the second point? And the answer is y. And what is the y coordinate for the first point? Well, it's h comma k. K is going to be the y coordinate for the first point. And we fill in the formula squared. Now, this isn't quite the standard equation of a circle. So what we need to do, one last thing, just for fun here. Let's say we didn't want this big, long square root on this side. We want to get rid of that square root. Then what we would need to do to undo a square root is what? Anybody? You can answer. You, maybe you in the back. Yeah, in order to undo a square root, we square it. Okay, that's exactly right. Whoever said that. Okay, so you square that, and then if we square that side on the right, we also have to square this side right here. That's why I was getting a little ahead of myself earlier. So yeah, that's where we get the r squared. And then, when we square a square root, it undoes it. They're inverse operations of each other, so they undo one another. So therefore, we're going to get x minus h squared plus y minus k squared. All right, so let me write this out more formally. So again, the standard form equation, I'm going to box up, but we usually write this side first and then this side. So let me write it like this. It's x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. And let me label these things. So your center, we said before we even started this thing, the center is going to be what? Well, it was hk. And the radius, a lot of people mess this up, and we'll do some examples with this, but the radius is not going to be r squared. The radius is r. Okay? So box this up. That is the standard equation of a circle. All right? So if we know h and k, and if we know our radius r, then we've got the standard equation of a circle. Okay? So pretty much all the rest of this video is going to be is doing examples. We're going to look at different things that they could ask us, the book could ask us. You might have questions on your homework assignment that are worded like these different types of examples. So here we go. Let's go ahead and move on from this. So here it is. Let's look at this first one. Now, I don't know if you can see this in the video, but what it wants you to do is to write the equation of the circle shown. So hopefully you can see the grid. If you can't, let me just go ahead and tell you the point 0, 0 is the center. And let me give you one point here just so you know what the radius is. This point right here on the circle is going to be the point 3, 0. So in case you can't see it on the video, I tried to, hopefully you can read those numbers there. So the center is 0, 0, and this point on the circle is 3, 0. Okay. So if we want to write the equation of the circle shown, what that means is we want to write the standard equation. So let me go ahead and write that formula or the equation out in general, and then we'll start filling stuff in. Okay. So here it is. Let me try to squeeze it in on this side. So it's going to be x minus h squared plus y minus k squared, and that's equal to r squared. So guys, keep writing this out. It's going to help you memorize it if you keep writing it down on your notes. So now here's the thing. Let's go ahead and label a couple things off the sides. Before I start plugging stuff in, I'm going to plug h and k in. I'm going to try to figure out what those are. And I'm also going to try to figure out what my radius is. All right, so let's first find the center And to find the center, that we got to figure out well, the center in this case is going to be 0, 0, which we mentioned earlier. So the center is 0, 0. And then what would the radius be? Well, hopefully you guys can see that the radius is 3. Okay, from the center to the circle, that's 3 units. So the radius is going to be 3. Okay, so all we've got to do now is start plugging stuff in. So the question I'm going to ask is, what is h? And the answer, h, is going to be 0. Okay, and then if I ask, what is k? K is 0 in this case as well. So remember, the center is always h, comma, k. So that's, I know h is going to be 0, I know k is going to be 0. So let's fill those in. So it's going to be x minus 0 squared plus y minus 0 squared, and that's going to equal r squared. Well, we know the radius is 3, but we have to square it. Okay, so it's going to be 3 squared. That's all there is to it. And so, guys, all I can do from here is I can kind of simplify this. I can clean this up a little bit. So if we have x minus 0 squared, well, that's the same thing as x squared, isn't it? Hopefully that makes sense. X minus 0 is just x. So that's x squared. Plus y minus 0 squared, y squared. And then 3 squared is 9. That right there is my answer. Guys, normally, if you don't have a 0 here, okay, don't try to FOIL this binomial. A lot of people try to FOIL it. So let's say, for example, this was x minus 1. A lot of people try to actually square both. No, don't go any further. Leave it in this form. Okay. The only reason I did this, I wrote it down right down here, is because I knew 0, x minus 0, the answer is just x. Okay. So I'll kind of explain what I mean by that in the next example. All right. So just leave it in this form because we wanted it in standard. We wanted the standard equation. Okay. All right, so let's do the next example. Hopefully that was all right. Let's keep going. This is a good one. This doesn't really have a picture, but we can still write it down. So it says, write the equation of a circle with center 0, comma, negative 9 and radius 4.2. So this one's very similar, except rather than giving us a picture, they're telling us the information already. So we know the center is 0, 9, and the radius is 4.2. Okay, so again, write down the standard form equation of a circle. Okay? So the standard form equation is going to be, try to memorize it without looking. Try to figure out what it's going to be, or try to remember what it is. So it's going to be x minus h squared plus y minus k squared, and that's going to equal to r squared. So there's the formula. Now all we got to do is plug stuff in. So my question is, what's h in this case? So think about that one for a second. All right. If you answered 0, the answer is correct. That right there is h, and negative 9 is going to be k. So let's plug 0 in for h. So this one's going to be x minus 0 again, squared. Now k, be careful here. The formula tells you to subtract. Well, k is negative as well, so we can't leave out either one of those negatives. So it's going to be y minus negative 9 squared. Hopefully that makes sense. Guys, the formula tells you to subtract. Your k is negative, so we have to subtract a negative. All right, and then the last thing, it tells us the radius is 4. Sorry, my bad, 4.2. So it's going to be 4.2 squared. Okay, now all we can do from here is just clean it up. Give me a second, I'm grabbing a calculator. I don't know what 4.2 squared is in my head. But I can clean this up. X minus 0 is just x. So we can write it as x squared plus, well, we can't really do much here, so that's what I was talking about earlier about leaving it in this form. The only thing we could do, though, is minus a negative is the same thing as what? As doing what? And the answer is adding a positive. So the answer is y plus 9 squared. And that's going to equal, well, 4.2 squared, I'm going to type it in here. 17.64. And what I'm going to say is, that's your answer. Keep it. That's it. We're done. That's all you got to do to write the equation of a circle. It's basically plugging and chugging, guys. Plugging numbers in and just simplifying a little bit if you can. All right? You're not always going to be able to simplify, but right here, I know x minus 0 is x. So I got to simplify. All right. And also the minus and negative, we can fix that as well. Sounds good. Let's do another one. This one's going to be a different type of example. Here it is. Let me read this thing. It says the point -5, 6 is on a circle with center -1, 3. All right, this is different. This is different, so hopefully you guys recognize that. You're going to have to look at it a different way. So it says write the standard equation of the circle. All right, this one's going to take a little bit more work. And I'll explain what I mean by that when I get this started. So you can draw this on a sheet of graph paper, or I'm just going to draw a rough sketch off to the side. So let me try to draw what's going on here. All right. So if I'm ever confused, draw the picture. Okay, that's what I tell you guys a lot. Draw the picture, especially in geometry. You need to draw pictures. So here we go. I'm going to draw an XY axis. Again, it's going to be a rough sketch. I'm going to use my circle tool. I'm going to kind of cheat a little bit. I know the center is going to be -1, 3. So -1, 3. I'm just going to estimate it about right here. Okay. Yeah. Sure. No, that's terrible. Let me fix this. Let me actually just make some coordinates. So that's -1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, this probably isn't going to work very well. I probably should have used graph paper, but let me try to draw this. So -1, 3 is the center, so that'll be about right there. And then I'm just going to make it bigger. Yeah, that's not working out for me. All right, I'm not going to edit this out. It's not working out for me. I should have put it on graph paper. Whoops. Yeah, let me just move that up. There we go. Let's just pretend that this is the point. I know it doesn't look like it. Let's pretend that's the point. Well, it's not bad, I guess. Let's say this is -5, 6, and the center is -1, 3. Okay. I'm going to try to write this equation now. So let's at least get this started. Let's write it in standard equation. Let's write the standard equation. Let's get it started. So remember, standard equation is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared, and that's equal to r squared. The problem with this is I'm not going to know the radius. I know the center. We can go plug those numbers in. So it's going to be x minus. So think to yourself, actually out loud, somebody tell me, well, tell anybody, what is h going to be in this case? Answer -1. So it's going to be minus -1. Okay. What is k going to be in this case? 3. And the problem lies, I don't know what my radius is. So that's why this problem is a little bit different than the last one we did. Last one, it gave us the radius, no problem, we just got to plug it in. This time we're going to have to figure out what the radius is. We're almost there. We got one thing to solve for. Once we solve for that, we're done. So guys, think about this. How can I find the radius from there to there? Another way to say that is how can I find the distance from there to there? And that should be a big hint. Got to use the distance formula. We've got 2 points here. We can always find the distance between the two. So it's just going to take a little bit of extra work. I'm going to write down the distance formula real quick. Distance is equal to the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. And then let's go from there. I'm not going to take too long doing this, guys. Hopefully you guys can figure this out. We've done distance formula many times. So whatever you want to call point 2, how about we call this guy point 2 again? That guy point 1. So what is the x coordinate for point 2? And the answer is -5. -5 minus x1. The x coordinate for point 1 is -1. So it's going to be minus -1 squared plus. Okay. My y coordinate for my second point is 6. My y coordinate for the first point is 3 squared. So just do a little bit of work here, do a little simplification. well, a little arithmetic. Negative 5 minus negative 1 is going to be negative 5 plus 1, which is negative 4 squared, plus 6 minus 3 is 3. It's going to be 3 squared. Negative 4 squared is going to be 16. 3 squared is 9. 16 plus 9 is 25. And then the square root of 25 is 5. All right, so we just found the radius. Once we have that, we're pretty much done. All we've got to do is plug it back in. So when I plug it back in here, go back up to the top. This is going to be 5 squared. I'm not going to write it any more times than that. 5 squared is 25. Okay. So this is going to be x plus 1 squared. See what I did there? Minus a negative, same thing as plus. Plus y minus 3 squared is equal to 25. That, my friends, is the answer. That's what it wants us to do, right? Just always double check. It says write the standard equation of the circle. Okay, let me just scroll down here a little bit in case you missed something there. That's the work I did for the distance formula. All right, just got one more example. Let's get it started. Here it is. This one's a little different. It says the equation. It gives you the equation. We're going backwards. We want to graph the circle. Okay, that shouldn't be too bad. Now I'm going to tell you, I'm just going to warn you, a lot of common mistakes that people make here. All right, there's actually one. I'll tell you what, 2 common mistakes that people make. So first of all, before we graph it, we need to know important information. Let's try to figure out the 2 things we need to know are the center and the radius. Okay, center and radius. So to find the center, we're working backwards here. Now remember, the center is always h comma k. Now we need to actually figure out what those numbers are. We're going to plug those numbers in a second. So here's the thing. Let me write down, what I'm going to do is below this, I'm going to write down the standard equation of a circle. So let's write it down one more time. So it's always x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. Okay, so let's find the center here first. So first of all, 4 is, hopefully you guys can see that this is x minus h. So h itself is not negative 4. H is going to be positive 4, okay? We need, whatever this h value is, since that's exactly 4, h is going to be 4. Hopefully you guys can see that. Now, what a lot of people mess up is this guy right here. Well, if you notice, this doesn't quite look like this, all right? So y plus 2 doesn't look like y minus something. All right, we want to get it to look like minus something. All right, so off to the side here, I don't really know where I'm going to put it. How about I erase it? I'll put it down here. So rather than writing it as y plus something, we can always rewrite that as y minus, hopefully you guys understand, negative 2. Okay? So I can rewrite y plus 2 as y minus negative 2. So now, if I wrote it like that, can you guys more easily see what k has to be? All right? It has to be a negative 2. Hopefully that makes sense. So it has to be y minus k. We need to write as y minus negative 2, so therefore k is negative 2. All right, so that is going to be our center. Let me get rid of this. Like I said, I'll erase that because I'm going to graph it here. And then the radius. I want you to think about what the radius is going to be. What is the radius going to be, guys? And again, the common mistake that I'm going to tell you, the radius is not 36. All right, 36 has already been squared. It's going to be this side is going to equal the radius squared. So if I want to figure out what the radius is, I have to take the square root. Okay, so we can rewrite 36. I can rewrite that as 6 squared. So therefore, we can more easily see what the radius has to be. The radius has to be 6. Okay. So the way to graph this, and I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to use my circle tool, but I still need to set up. I need to set up my center, and I need to use my radius. So I'll show you how to graph that here by hand. But again, I'm not gonna actually graph it by hand. I'm gonna use the circle tool. But here we go. So I'll do this one. How about I do it in purple here? So the center is 4, -2. So you just got to find that point. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. So that'd be the center. And again, make sure you put the point in the right place. 4, -2. And we said the radius is 6. So for you guys don't have the tool here. What you need to do is just take that point and you need to count 6 in each direction. So up, right, down, and left. Okay? So let me go up 6. 1, 2, let me count them out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So make a point there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Make a point there. That's going to be the radius of 6 as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And count from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, now guys, if you just connect the dots exactly with lines, it's not going to look like a circle. So do the best you can, and again, I'll try to draw it curved. You might have to kind of pick up your pencil a few times, but try to do the best you can to make it a circle, make it look like a circle. So something like this. Alright, that's not bad. Could be better. And I'm going to make it better like this. Let me undo all that stuff. So, I'm going to cheat here. That's the center. Perfect. I'm good. Alright, so that's how it looks. And that's going to be how you graph the circle. Other than that, I think, is there anything I'm missing? That's it. Said graph the circle. That's all we needed to do. So in order to graph the circle, the 2 things you need to find are the center and the radius. And I'll talk about how to do those. So again, just to reiterate, be careful. Make sure it matches the equation exactly. So right here, this one matches exactly. This one does not. It doesn't look like a minus sign, but you can always change it to be a minus. It's minus a negative. Subtracting a negative is the same thing as adding a positive. Okay? So that's why K is a -2. So kind of a shortcut here, guys. You can, if you think about it this way, you can just change the sign on whatever's here. So if this is a negative, if this is a -4, +4 is H. If this is a +2, -2 is K. All right? That's all I got for you guys. The test, we're going to have a test coming up, so make sure you guys study. I'm going to try to, I don't know if I'll be able to leave for you study materials. I might leave a study guide, I'm not sure, but if I don't, make sure you look back at your notes, look back at your homeworks that you've done, things like that. All right, thanks.